Hey guys, it's Rachel and welcome back to another paint with me. Today I'm going to be doing my first abstract painting using acrylic paints and a palette knife. I don't actually own a palette knife, so I'm going to be using a butter knife that works just the same. Here it is. Just doesn't have a pointed tip. So I've already covered the palette with white paint because it had something on it before, and I'm going to be starting with the blue. Today I'm going to be telling you some tips and tricks, some do's and don'ts that I learned while doing this. So first thing I would say is that I did not let the white paint dry, and I didn't plan for that, so if you don't want the white mixing with your colors, make sure you let it dry. I didn't want this blue to have so much light blue in it, so I should have let that paint dry. The second tip is a do that I did not do, and that is to create a color plan, a color story, where you actually swatch all the paints that you want to use. I did create a color plan, or a color story, but I did not actually swatch them, and this blue I'm using now I thought was going to be a lot darker than the other blue, but when I blend it out like this, it doesn't show up as navy as I thought it would, so I had a bright idea to use some black. That's going to be a don't, I would say, if you're just starting, because you can see it blends with the colors and looks very scary. It doesn't look too bad here, but if I were to blend it out anymore, and you see when I add some white near it, it gets really muddy. That's going to take us to our next don't, and that is over blending, which is what I'm going to be doing to this top left corner the entire time, you will see. So one cool thing about this is that you can layer a lot, but I would say that you're going to want to let it dry before you're layering too much so it doesn't mix together. So this gold that I'm going to be using is a much thicker paint than the others. You can see how much nicer it spreads and doesn't blend. So that is a big do to use thick acrylic. It looks so much prettier and it looks a lot less streaky. You can see how streaky the blues are looking now. I actually want this painting to be streaky, but not in that way. So I just scraped some of that black off. That is another do. I wouldn't exactly say it's a do, but it is a tip. If you don't like something, you can scrape it up. So you see that gold didn't get as muddy in the center because there wasn't that dark blue there, where at the top I did not scrape it and you can see it's very muddy. So when you're doing something like this and you want a lot of texture in it, it does help to let it dry. You can see I'll do that later. And when you have some texture and then you let it dry and you add texture more on top of that, it just creates a very thick, nice looking painting, if that's the style you want. So I'm adding a different shade of blue because I didn't really like the way that royal blue made that light blue. I like this tone a lot better, so I just added that. And oh, here is a big no. I tried to add some silver and I used a very thin paint, even more than the others. It's almost just like a finish. And you can see it picks up the paint because it's so thin and there's so much wet paint. It's just a big don't. And you can use your palette knife in all different ways. You can use the side, you can zigzag. I'm mostly just going up and down like I'm spreading butter. It is a butter knife, and I'm using the side, but you can do it in all different ways. So now I'm adding that navy, and since there's not a lot of white wet paint in that corner, it actually looks how I wanted it to look. So I tried adding some to that corner I'm struggling with, and at first it started looking good, but then I started over blending it, and I don't know why, but I tried to go back in with that gold before anything had dried right here, and it just looks awful. I was very mad about that. So I just kind of take a close-up look at my painting here. I'm pretty happy with most of it. That gold looks very nice. It's streaking downward how I wanted. It's messy the way I wanted, but that top corner is just muddy. There's a difference between a controlled mess and just making a mess. So I figured I need to let it dry, just sleep it off, come back in the morning. So now it's dry and I'm adding some white to cover up that mess. Then I'm going to go on top of that white with gold, a lot of gold, and you can see how much prettier it shows up than when I was trying to add the gold over that wet blue. And since there's so much texture already that is dry, it looks very cool. You'll see at the very end when the light is at a different angle how much texture there is, and it looks very nice. So I'm just adding some final touches of gold. That bottom corner was a little bit empty, so I'm adding some to the very end. a little more gold right in that top corner. And just add final touches. Bring it together so it looks how you like. You can add the paint right to the knife to get a little bit more control, especially if you want to do it on the corners of the painting. It was so much fun using this knife instead of a brush. I'd never done anything like that, and it's just a really fun project to do an abstract painting. There's all different kinds of abstract. This is like the most abstract because there's no actual subject in the painting. Now you can see at this angle all that texture and all that nice shine that that gold has. I was really happy with the way it came out. So here is the final piece. Like I said, I was very happy with it. Please check out some of my other videos.